Hello gents, and welcome to this next presentation on looking at the area of study and writing an extended response in preparation for helping you to write your discovery essay on the prescribed text of Motorcycle Diaries. Just a bit of a reminder, when you look at what you're required to do for the HSC with extended response writing, you can see on the left hand side there you've got section 3 of paper 1 will require you to have an area of study extended response. You'll also have extended responses in the Module A, Module B and Module C essays. It's hoped that this video will give you a little bit of understanding about how to prepare specifically for an area of study response, but also to remind you of some of the general response techniques for preparing an extended response in English specifically. So how to write an HSC extended response in English. The first thing here seems a little bit self-explanatory, but it starts with, before you start writing, you need to read the question and analyse the question. We've discussed this in class. So firstly, is there a stimulus connected to the question? I'll put a stimulus example down here. Discovery is a multifaceted process challenging the individual to reconsider anew their place within their own culture. Firstly, you need to consider what kind of information needs to go into an extended response, and then secondly, and I emphasise this, use the first 2 or 3 minutes of the exam to draw up a quick plan inside the cover of your exam booklet. So breaking down that question is critical. Read the question, analyse the question, consider the way the stimulus is used, and then the question that follows that. Secondly, you need to think about your thesis. Now, this thesis is important because it is the first sentence of your essay. The first sentence of your essay is your thesis, in which you answer the question directly. You do that immediately as you begin the essay. And as I say here, do not just sum up class discussion of what you have read. You should come up with something at least slightly original. And again, give your essay a certain spin, a question which you will explore a perspective. In short, as I say here, point 1, you need a thesis which is a main argument. Remember, your main argument or thesis needs to be strong enough to allow you to attach sub-arguments to it. These sub-arguments, as we're going to discuss later, are your topic sentences. The second point there outlines that you need to state your thesis clearly. Do not use convoluted language. Do not have a thesis that runs for 4 lines. This is a sentence. You need to choose your words very judiciously, selectively. You need to make sure that you are answering the question in a very direct way. The clarity with which you prepare that thesis will assist your marker in assessing how well you outline and argue that thesis later in your essay. Looking at the introduction as a whole. Again, this is the first 1 or 2 paragraphs of your essay. Feel free to obviously have 2 paragraphs. The double-barreled introduction is widely accepted, but remember too, your introduction should be very concise, contained, and straight to the point. As I say here, a good introduction needs to include the following. As I've mentioned previously, answer the question directly in the first sentence. There is your thesis. Secondly, introduce your prescribed text and related text using the following details. Now remember, you can play around with these details a little bit if you like, but you need to include all of these details at some point. Your full name of the text, the composer of the text, indicate the textual form. And this is very important as you get further down into your essay and you're using related text particularly. You need to indicate whether it's a film, a novel, a poem, a song. Whatever it is, you need to be very explicit with your marker. I would also recommend the first time you mention your texts, you underline the full name of the text. Do not then underline at any other point in the essay, but underline your prescribed text and your related text. Do not use any abbreviations. So for instance, with the Motorcycle Diaries, do not write the Motorcycle Diaries out the first time you introduce the text and then put in brackets MC. This is a sign of laziness. It's not something that's very well received by the markers. And again, you're not going to be wasting significant amounts of time by writing out the Motorcycle Diaries in full each time. So do not go down the path of abbreviations. As I'll put down here, here's an example of how you could introduce the texts as outlined in the sample essay we're going to look at in a moment. I'll leave you to look at that, but suffice to say, as you can see, the name of the text is given there. It is underlined. It does not include the year of publication, which is 2003 here, which you could also add. But as you can see, the related text underneath, I've used Ang Lee's Life of Pi, which of course you wouldn't use because it's a prescribed text for this area of study, but it gives you an example too of how you could put the two together. You need to explain the problem, the question which you're going to address in the introduction. Your introduction needs to state why this question or problem is relevant, and also your introduction will state your thesis clearly at the end of the introduction. So again, when you open your introduction with a strong thesis, you'll make your way down through your introduction to obviously introduce your texts, indicate some key arguments, and then finally you'll restate your thesis in a way that links to your first topic sentence. Again, the introduction's sole purpose is to tell your reader how you will prove your thesis, and ultimately that is how you will structure your argument. Here's an example of a well-structured introduction to a Motorcycle Diaries essay. You can see the question there in the first box at the top. Underneath that, you can see obviously the prescribed text is listed there, non-fiction memoir again for genre, and you can see the related text which has been used, which is Wide Open Road, The Triffids, which is a 1986 music video. Have a look through the introduction that is given here. You'll notice the column on the left is the annotation. These are the additional notes that are provided to assist you in identifying how and why this introduction is a successful one. The only advice I would give regarding this particular introduction is they have used the first person collective our. Now again, you will not be writing in first person, you will not be using I, our, me, or we. Remember, if you convert that to third person, you are fine. I'd like you to take a look through this. You've been provided with a copy of this in class. The body for your essay. So moving to that second phase. Each paragraph needs to begin with a topic sentence. Think of each paragraph as a mini essay. The first sentence in each paragraph is your topic sentence. That is the argument you are going to use for that paragraph. Remember, if in the advanced course you're thinking more broadly, your topic sentence should include a key theme that is going to allow you to connect both your prescribed text and your related text together. That topic sentence needs to be broad enough so that from a thematic point of view, you can include both texts there. Your topic sentence, as I say again here, is a sub-argument. Now remember, the first sentence of your essay in the introduction is your thesis. Each topic sentence, that is, the first sentence of each paragraph, needs to connect back to this thesis in a meaningful way so that you are developing that main argument with smaller arguments that sit underneath. And as I say, it needs to link directly to the thesis. And additionally, the third point, you must make sure that your essay has one key argument. Okay, that is your main argument, your thesis, and then the sub-arguments. Every paragraph needs to be related to your thesis. Body paragraphs need to be direct and approximately 5 to 8 lines in length. Of course, you can go a little bit over that, but you've got to remember, if I'm writing a paragraph that's going for half a page, does all the information in this paragraph actually connect to my topic sentence? Everything within that essay paragraph needs to connect to that topic sentence. And as I say here, each body paragraph needs to have a concluding sentence that links to the topic sentence of your next body paragraph. This is how you develop a sequence. This is called telegraphing, where one idea in your essay in a paragraph will connect to the next idea in the following paragraph. You need to then think about how you sequence your ideas and your arguments. I've put here an example of a body paragraph. Please take some time to look over this, noting in the left-hand column the significant annotations that have been made about the topic sentence, the prescribed text and the discussion of it, as well as the analysis of the prescribed text. A bit of advice. Avoid paragraph which read like a list only, giving nothing more than examples. Again, at the level of an advanced student, you need to be analysing each example you give. More will be said on this on the Peel Scaffold video. Make sure each of the body paragraphs takes your argument one step further and again introduces a new aspect that connects to your main thesis. Make sure your points are going to make it clear. Obviously, formatting is important there. Avoid too much summary of content from your reading and classes. Again, do not regurgitate the notes simply back to me. And lastly, include references to the original text. This is most important. Your evidence will come primarily in terms of textual evidence right from the prescribed text or the related text. Those are the examples that you will then analyse. Again, I've provided an additional body paragraph here. Please take the time to read this and look at the annotations in the left-hand column. We move to the conclusion. Now, the conclusion is a very important part of the essay. Remember, in HSC conditions, both papers, you will only have 40 minutes per section. That's effectively saying you've got 40 minutes to write an essay. You're not expected to do that at this point in the course, but your conclusion needs to be a feature of your essay. Your conclusion, remember, demonstrates the way in which you have answered the question. The first sentence of your conclusion should be a rewording of your main thesis. You do not need to reinvent anything here. You just need to go back to the first sentence of your essay, your thesis, and you need to reword that as the first sentence of your conclusion. You need to show the marker exactly how you have answered the question and the fact you have come up with an answer. Your conclusion, as I say here, needs to sum up your argument. You need to be able to close your argument off in a way that the marker can see that you achieved what you set out to do. Your thesis and your introduction outline the pathway that you wish to take in answering the question. The conclusion should outline to your marker very clearly the fact that you have achieved this and you've addressed the question that was asked. Lastly, place your thesis in a more general context. Do not introduce new ideas at all, do not introduce new quotes, do not introduce new material. You need to offer a more general outlook on the topic you have covered. My last thing here is, and this is what examiners really like, I would consider including in your conclusion a quote. Again, you're not arguing this quote, you're not using this quote as textual evidence, you are simply finishing your essay with a profound quote that supports, obviously, your thesis. Examiners like to see a student who can finish an essay off with a very strong thought, but a strong thought that is supported by something that comes out of the prescribed text. It's a great way of finishing, and as I would say, finish with a flourish. Here again is an example of a conclusion. And again, you can see that first sentence very clearly addresses, if you go back to look at the thesis from this particular essay in one of the previous slides, you'll see very clearly that this particular closing sentence on the conclusion is very, very explicit in terms of being direct in the way in which the question has been answered. You'll see that the conclusion does not ramble on, it simply reiterates key topic sentences in order to show the question has been addressed. As you can see, the annotation here indicates very clearly that the conclusion opens with a version of the thesis, as I've previously stated, and briefly states how the question has been answered. Again, you would use your topic sentences to link back to this. It's all practice. Lastly, some important points to remember. Use formal language. Avoid colloquial language at all costs. For example, write do not rather than don't, but do not use overly artificial language. Do not become too colourful. Do not start referring to whom or any outdated English expressions like that. Be direct. Your examiner is going to be reading multiple papers at a marking centre after teaching all day. They want language that is clear, language that speaks to them, and language that can articulate ideas in a very succinct way. Less is best. Use language precisely. Use third person, as I've indicated previously. Do not use first person. There are 3 examples there of common mistakes that are used in looking at first person. Make sure each of your paragraphs develops only one idea at a time. Remember, think of each body paragraph as a mini essay. The first sentence is your introduction. You will then include a series of arguments, textual evidence, and finally a concluding sentence for each paragraph, which links to the next paragraph. Remember, you're only able to develop a certain number of ideas in a paragraph. Do not try to develop 3, 4, 5, 6, and 12 ideas in a particular paragraph. Spread them out over multiple paragraphs, use different textual evidence to support your argument and analysis, and then connect this paragraph to the following paragraph. Leave a line between each paragraph. This is often not done. You need to be very careful to be able to see that an examiner can see where your ideas connect to each other. It's not good enough simply to have a loose structure on a page. In fact, the examiner's got to go through and find your ideas. That's not their role. If you have adequate structure on the page, the first thing that strikes the examiner is that you've set out your work in a logical, sequential way. This allows your ideas to speak for themselves. A common question is about how many lines should be in a paragraph. Ideally, as I've previously stated, 6 to 8 lines would be a maximum. If you can't make your point in that amount of space, as I say here, you're writing irrelevant detail or you're trying to cover too many good arguments in one paragraph. This is often a cause of great anguish for students because they find themselves in a position where they're trying to cover too much in a very small space. Use everything you've prepared, but spread it out It allows you to include more examples and textual detail, and it allows you to then start analysis. If you're finding in a particular paragraph you are trying to outline the same idea over and over again, you're probably falling into descriptive recount and recounting the plot. Avoid this and be aware of it. If it doesn't connect to your topic sentence, why are you writing it? Lastly, you need to break up a new argument into a new paragraph. It sounds like common sense, but back yourself. A lot of people choose to try and relate irrelevant ideas to each other in the one paragraph for the sake of tidying it up. The idea will speak for itself. If you're able to put the idea into a new paragraph as a topic sentence and then develop that idea in a paragraph, you're onto a good thing. Remember, it's perseverance, practice, and ongoing feedback. Good luck with preparing your essays.